Yeah, man. Damn. Let's go. Oh. See if I'm any good anymore. I can't make a shot. There we go. Give me a second. Hey, we here. Hold on. Move this shit. There we go. Hey, my jacket. Too easy. Damn. I didn't expect James Harden to play any defense, but he did. Hey, let's go. Oh, come on, man. They made me slow up. Nothing to do about that. Kobe. I was out of bounds. Too easy. Smooth move. Did you see the bounce pass? Jeez. Uh-oh. Too easy. Why is James Harden even on Philadelphia anyway? He on the Clippers. Too open, bro. James Harden cut down the middle. Gotta get in some videos and shit. All right. Let's see what we got. Man, I got takeover. They wasting it. The free. Oh no, it's not. I still got 98%. Oh come on, man. I tried to shoot it like Maxi wasn't there. There's a block. Like I said, why is James Harden? Oh yeah, because I'm playing a season or whatever type shit. I remember now. My bad. My bad. My bad. My dude still ain't even finished yet. All right, I'm gonna come back this way. I was about to say, that one gotta go in. The shooter like he ain't even there. He little. That's nice. We'll take it. Slight step back. I'm about to say he caught that too easily. Oh, pass it back. Who this? Hey. They gotta step up on the pick and roll. I'm finna shoot. Hell nah. Wow. 3 seconds to go. Oh, that's on me. I should have just caught it and shot it. I tried to take a dribble. Damn, bro. See what videos we got. I ain't really got nothing prepared or planned out, you know. We're gonna do it live. Like Bill O'Reilly said, fuck it, we'll do it live, you know what I'm saying? Shout out Bill O'Reilly. Bro, come on, pass me the ball. All right, you already took too long, bro. Oh, I got lucky on that steal. I was about to say, if I missed that, I should have took a three. Oh, come on. Why is James Harden? Never mind. I forgot. My bad. I'm playing a season. Oh, hold on. I knew I shouldn't have done that, but I was trying out a different shot before my takeover went away. Oh, come on. All right. I think I can get another shot on real quick. Yep, I did. With the big snatch bag, too. We doubling every time James Harden get it. Fuck. Ooh, I could have took him though. That's too good. James Harden was busy with that screen, so you know he couldn't put a hand up. He doubling every time, bro. I shouldn't have went for that steal. I was still kind of there. I ain't gonna make that one too far out. Fuck. Should have took one more dribble. I'm over here thinking I got takeover. Oh, we doubling every time. If they pass it, I can dunk it. Nah, too late. James Harden ain't got no defense. Like I said, he worrying about that screen. I didn't know he was gonna play point guard, but if he is, we're gonna double team every time. Before he even dribbled too. Oh, that's easy. Oh, come on. I thought it was easy. Yeah, give it to James. Oh, I almost fouled him. I mean, we gotta play defense on him, but get to it. Like he ain't even there. It doesn't matter. Oh, I was about to say, matter of fact, we're doubling everybody, but we can't double everybody. Oh yeah, let me hit that one. Yeah. Hold on. I had him now. Got him. Come on. It's because the only reason I missed it because I was blinking. Alright, but I had him though. Oh, come on, man. Here. Oh, big nigga shooting me. I done missed a few. Oh, shit. I can't double right now, though, because James Harden got Maxey in the corner. Oh, you got a piece of that. That's too easy, bro. Double team James Harden every time. About to say, whoever this nigga, he can shoot. What the fuck is Draymond Green doing? Nigga threw that shit hard as hell at the backboard. James Harden tripping. Oh yeah, that shit's 22 minutes now. Okay, he made it in parts. Fuck it, we'll start with this one. See what this one's talking about.
There's a growing issue that must be addressed, as I've been contacted by hundreds of concerned supporters across various platforms, all dealing with the same problem. There are a large number of fake Eric Dubé accounts being proliferated across many social medias, pretending to be me and soliciting my supporters for a variety of things, from crypto scams to flat earth t-shirts.
Don't fall for the fake
I've
Eric
been putting
Dubé,
out all my content.
That's funny. Let me actually find this video from the other day that I wanted to watch again. because I had some audio issues the other day on the last stream. And I know it's from my lunch breaks channel. So shout out to my lunch breaks channel. If you haven't subscribed to my lunch breaks channel, it's not my channel, but the channel's name is My Lunch Break. So, yeah, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Pretty crazy channel.
Transept by pouring. Do you remember?
We'll get to it in a second. Let me finish playing.
Do you remember when in episode 36 we went and saw?
I was trying to post up. Oh, that was me trying to post up. I got 3 seconds. What the fuck? Man, I'm in there posting out and lost all my takeover fucking around. Trying to post up. I was about to say that ain't enough floor space for that. Uh-oh. I fucked up, but I still made it. Oh yeah, we still double teaming. Ah shit, I shouldn't have did it that time, not that possession. Wait, yeah, it paid off. I got a mismatch though. Hold on, let me get the mismatch. Oh. Oh! I should have did a floater. Fucked around and pressed the wrong shit. I tapped it. Joel Embiid was on my ass though. Damn, that's a frustration foul.
That's fine, no problem.
All right, there we go. Let's see what we got. All right, we got it finally. Oh, I was about to say, I did the move that I was trying to do, but I didn't execute it successfully. Yeah, that was a perfect double team. As soon as he put the ball on the ground. Oh, why do I gotta jump? I can't jump with Joel Embiid. Maybe I can. Hey, Draymond can't catch it. All right, I gotta throw the lob to the other guy instead. Ooh, come on, they won't let me get a steal. Oh, that was a nice little pass. I didn't even see that. I mean, I saw it, but all right, whatever. Let's see. Ooh, it's too easy. Get off me. Double team. Alright, I ain't gonna double team no more for a minute. Damn, I fucked up. I had it, what I was looking for though too. I said I wasn't gonna double team for a minute. Next possession, double team. Alright, here we go. That was easy. That's what I was trying to do the last possession. But I don't know. Oh, I threw it to Draymond or something. Oh yeah, let's watch this video real quick. I turn off this music.
The 132-foot tall Tower Castle, the Alt Guild Hall, located on the campus of the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. A castle that was constructed in less than a year, over 125 years ago, which we documented in episode 41. That this construction
In less than a
timeline
year?
is logistically impossible, especially in that time period. We also know that the building is going through a restoration project. Buildings from the old world, the previous civilization,
need
were built to
restoration.
last lifetimes, hundreds of thousands of years. They definitely don't need our help, the way that our modern construction does, where our roads are falling apart after 5 years. And these mainstream stories have many hidden clues, just waiting for us to find them. And I believe that we just did. The Alt Guild Hall, with the name
Old
Alt
money.
Guild. This translating
funny.
in German to old money, with a clear nod to the old world. That the name of the building is literally old money. And I believe that we just took this research to a whole nother level, where we now understand that they are using multiple languages to hide these codes within the narrative. And this is going to unlock so many doors for us. So we have the building that is named Old World Money, where there probably was old gold stashed inside when they founded it. And this, of course, isn't the first destruction project, because in 1956, only 59 years after they supposedly built this castle, it got its last big renovation. A big renovation, 59 years after it was built. I wonder what they removed from this castle that they did not want us to see in 1956. And this is when we read the title of the article, proving that we are correct, that there are things in these buildings that are hidden to us, that they are destroying with these renovation projects, where most of the public don't fully understand what's inside or outside of these buildings. That's just not revealed to us. These structures were not built in 1 year by the horse and wagon
Definitely
community.
not.
These structures expose the old world, a civilization that was so advanced that it would blow our minds. And they weren't here thousands of years ago. In my opinion, they were here only a few hundred years ago. And all of their buildings, their castles, all of their work is left behind for us to see. And of course, we're not allowed to go inside the old money hall and be a part of these revealings of the intricate decor and gold leaves. A gold leaf? Old money? Old gold? A hidden project? What did they find that triggered a renovation project? Revealing gold leaves. I think we know. And we're just getting started. Welcome to episode 57 of My Lunch Break. I hope you're all having a great day. And if you're new, welcome.
Little no look pass.
And I want to thank all of our sponsors over on Nation, like we did today with the Old Money Hall. About any other buildings that we've covered, I'm definitely going to share it with everyone here. Now, for anyone that watches darts, you're going to know this building very well. The Alexandra Palace, or the Ali Pali. It is home to the World Darts Championship since 2008. If you've seen my first 56 episodes, you'll know that we've just located
My
yet
first
another
56
old
episode.
world building. The Alexandra Palace was built by John Johnson, another reoccurring AI-generated name, and Alfred Meeson, where it opened in 1873, but following a fire. 16 days after it opened. 16 days after it opened? Really? This
Another
is
fire
incredible.
story.
The amount of fire narratives, because we all know at this point, and have covered the Crystal Palace, that they just threw into this story, connecting the two buildings, saying that North London's counterpart to the Crystal Palace. And we know here that the Crystal Palace also burned down in a fire. The connections
That's
that are
crazy.
made within these narratives are incredible. So let's just follow this path of fires for a minute and see where they lead us. And we'll come back to the Alexandra Palace right after. The Crystal Palace had a reoccurring name because the AI says the daughter's name is also Crystal. And they were walking their dog. The dog was probably also named Crystal. And they just
Everybody's name's
realized
Crystal.
randomly that the massive crystal structure was burning down. where 89 fire engines and 400 firemen couldn't save the building. How long was the building burning down before they realized it? Nobody saw any smoke? Crystal and her dog were the only ones to realize it. So she walks her dog, finds the burning down Crystal Palace, and the true cause of the fire will forever be a mystery, where we are also told another clear lie, where 100,000 people came to watch the blaze. They told us that within a few hours, the fire was done and the palace was destroyed. So in a matter of a few hours, 100,000 people just hopped up out of bed in 1936 and they ran right over there in the middle of the night to go watch this fire. And this is clearly an AI generated story, when it just throws another fire in the exact same paragraph for fun. In 1866, when the North Transept burnt down and didn't have proper insurance coverage from Geico to rebuild the building. No. This
Geico
was
lizard.
from the old world, and our civilization today cannot rebuild it, especially in 1866. We still do have a ton of structures from the old world, like the York Cathedral, also located in the North Transept, where they tell us that construction began over 1,397 years ago. Well, actually, they tell us they found it, but the booming 627s. Can you believe that this is
Right.
what we're being told? The year 627. Are you kidding me? And we're supposed to believe this. A time before paper. There were no phones. There were no power tools for another 1,268 years. Zero training needed, nothing. We are supposed to
crazy.
believe that they had nothing, but they had it covered. And they were master builders at the exact same time. We are told that there's no electricity, zero modern plumbing. All of these things were unnecessary in the 627s. But being able to construct massive cathedrals, that was just embedded in their DNA.
Yeah,
Over
makes
1,400 years later.
Checks out.
Today, we have classes that go into great detail, supposedly, learning architecture skills from the very best teachers of our time period. It's the year 2024. Yet, I don't see anybody constructing this type of structure for everybody to see. But yet they did this so many times, all over the world. And guess what? All of their work is still here for us to see. Could you imagine the buildings, the structures that were here before we were born, that have been destroyed by now? Just look at the size of the doorways. Everything was just massive and over the top to our civilization,
crazy.
but completely normal to the old world. And of course, in the year 741, they know all about this building. But 1,000 years later, as we've shown, that they have no idea who constructed anything. They don't tell us any details about the construction process, how many men, where the materials come from, none of that. But here we go. 741, not 742, 741 on the dot. The church was destroyed by a fire. So we get the nod. And how did we not see the fires before? This is insane, the amount of fires. How can every single one of these old world buildings hold a fire narrative and nobody noticed it until now? These fires are insane and a very clear pattern that this narrative was just sitting here waiting for us to find it. Egbert's librarian got to work. He started the reconstruction, and thankfully,
The
Ian
librarian?
Bald was there to take over and wrap this
luckily.
palace up, no problem. I couldn't be more thankful that we know the truth, that these stories are just that. They're stories. It is so much more fun knowing the truth. Understanding that no librarian just sits around waiting for a fire to then knock out palaces 1,400 years ago. Understanding that no damage took place in 1069. And what we see today is the original building. And there were no Thomases of the 1070s getting the repairs done in less than 5 years, for it then to be destroyed yet again. 5 years after that, getting
Logically,
rebuilt
nah.
again, with perfection, of course, very easily, that they could just switch up the entire style of the cathedral. In 5 years, switching it now to the Norman style. Switching it up, no problem at all.
No problem.
1,000 years ago.
Norman
Just because
style.
the Norman style
Coming right up.
was just the style of the times 5 years later. The good old Norman style. Anyone switching their homes to the Norman style this year? Anyone know any librarians in the Norman style construction business? So after this gets done, 1,000 years ago, during the day, at nighttime, they hop on their donkey and go to sleep in their sheds for another big day of construction. Freezing in the winters, of course. And you're not on the fence still, are you? I'll keep going. Where the new Norman-style cathedral was damaged by fire in 1137. But don't worry, the 1100s had it covered because it was soon repaired. All
No
remodeled
problem.
in 1154. And this is all fully documented, of course. No. And there were many witnesses.
No, it isn't.
No. Lots of evidence of all of these fires and reconstruction projects. There's none. But just trust them. They know what really happened. And you don't. Yeah, it's not working anymore. A new one was built, all in the Norman style, with ease 900 years ago. When in 1390, the Norman style goes out of style and needs to be demolished
They
because
remodeling
they could be
again.
very picky in the 1300s. This was not up to their standards. Time for a new style. 15 years
Right.
later, in 1405, fully documented, of course, no, this thing was all done and wrapped up with a brand new high altar. 2 years later, the central tower collapses. But don't worry. 13 years later, 1420, the tower is back in business.
No problem.
Oh my, you gotta
Back
be
in
joking.
business.
In 1829, an arson attack, and in 1840, an accidental fire. And in 1984, York Minster suffered a serious fire in its
That's
South
1984
Transit
though.
during the early morning hours, where they made the decision to deliberately collapse the
They had to
roof
pull
of
it.
the South Transit by
Sounds
pouring
familiar.
tens of thousands of gallons of water onto it. We get this very in-depth story in 1984 because we were all here to see it. And
Right,
it actually
exactly.
happened. Remember, a fire is a great way to destroy the old world. There's nobody to blame, and they get to collect the insurance check
the
at the
money.
exact same time. But the fires before the 1900s, in my opinion, they are nods. They never happened. They are simply throwing it into the narrative to show the hidden group which buildings are from the previous civilization. So for the fire that we actually saw in 1984, they had
Oh,
this
yeah, that one.
incredible narrative and documented accounts with people putting the fire out and all of it. But for all of the other fires, there was nothing. It just burned down and boom, it's back to normal. No problem over and over. Switching styles if they wanted to, which isn't logical at all. And of course, they have no
Switching styles
idea
if
what
they wanted
caused
to.
the massive fire. With these ridiculous stats, 80% chance it was caused by lightning. There's a 10% chance it was caused by yet another mysterious arson. But they got away without anyone knowing. And another 10%
Sneaky.
chance it was caused by an electrical fault, with a 100% chance that they know the truth and are lying. And can we just say one thing before we move on?
What?
How
What?
many
What is
times
that?
did we see the name Thomas and William in this story? I mean, I get it. It's a popular name in the 1000s. It was a trendy name back then, but come on. After what we've seen, not only do we get the AI fires, but we also get the reoccurring names. We get Thomas of Bayo, Thomas Fairfax, Thomas
Everybody's
Becket,
name is
then we get
Thomas
William
back
the
then.
Conqueror of the 1066s. The drawing of the building by William Martin, you know, the brother of
arson's
the
brother.
arsonist, which
That's funny.
at this point is just rubbing it in our faces. And to top it off, I think this paragraph should be changed from shrines to Williams. Because are we talking about shrines or are we talking about Williams? With William Fitzherbert, St. William of York, which is perhaps associated with St. William's College, we get William de Wickwayne and William Markham. If you ask me, that's not normal or mathematically possible. For a single paragraph about a true narrative, it is, on the other hand, 100% possible that an AI generated these narratives. Now, we got away from the original building of the Alexandra Palace. I think for good reason, but let's get back to it now. We know that it also holds the fire narrative, where the story begins with a company name. That is definitely AI generated. The Great Northern Palace Company? How many Great Northern Palaces was this Great Northern Palace Company knocking out? In the mid-1800s. They apparently only built this palace and then decided
first one.
that that was the end of the company, with 0 other buildings listed to their name. We have to just stop for a second and really look at what they're telling us.
That
This
don't make any
guy
sense.
named Owen Jones, who they used for the Crystal Palace as well, of course, started this project for the Alexandra Palace in 1859, supposedly. A year after that, this Great North Palace Company just comes out of nowhere. And we are told that the Palace Construction Company couldn't get the funds to build their first and only palace. Construction materials were acquired and recycled from the large 1862 International Exhibition Building. So they took all the pieces from this massive
swapped it
building
out.
that they just didn't want anymore. In my opinion, the buildings both have the exact same material. So they are trying to attempt to explain why this is the case by saying that they just went over to the other one, took the other one apart, and used it for this one, when in reality, they were built by the same old world civilization. So let's pretend it's 2024, and we make a new construction company called Your Everyday Palace Construction Company, and they have zero money, and just start ripping apart the SoFi Stadium. And they build a little miniature version of it. And we all agree that this is a great idea, and totally normal and acceptable. Are we all on the same page that that is ridiculous? Okay, good. Let's continue. In 1863, 3 years later, they begin to try and explain away why this palace sits on top of a hill, which is very interesting because we all know about the hills and how they most likely are just grass, covering bigger structures under what we can see, especially when this is installed into the narrative that the palace sits on a site that stands on a ridge more than 300 feet high. So in 1865, they finally get this project started. They get the job done in 1873, and 16 days later, the whole thing burns down. And 4,700 items. In my opinion, these are old world items, especially when they tell us that. Okay, good. Let's continue. In 1863, 3 years later, they begin to try and explain away why this palace sits on top of a hill, which is very interesting because we all know about the hills and how they most likely are just grass, covering bigger structures under what we can see, especially when this is installed into the narrative that the palace sits on a site that stands on a ridge more than 300 feet high. So in 1865, they finally get this project started. They get the job done in 1873, and 16 days later, the whole thing burns down. And 4,700 items. In my opinion, these are old world items, especially when they tell us that they are items of historic value. These items, in my opinion, were never even in this building. They probably still have these items, but we're told they were all destroyed in this fire that happened 16 days after the palace is done. Here is where we find a massive logistical slip-up by the narrator. We were told that the entire building was supposedly destroyed on the inside, saying that only the outer walls survived. And we were told that the palace took 8 years to build. Well, in 1873, the fire took place. They had to clean the entire place up, plan out a new one, and get the job done somehow in the 1800s, before the power tool was invented, and get this reconstruction project done in less than 2 years. A massive slip up. This right here, in my opinion, proves that this entire story is all a lie. This is logistically impossible today in 2024. We would not be able to come close to getting this project done in that time frame. Yet, in 1873 to 1875, we are told, and we are supposed to believe, that they had no problem at all doing it. Just giving us a quick sentence that the palace was quickly rebuilt and reopened in 1875. How many men did they need? Who constructed that one? Who cleaned the other one up? And this wasn't like a few basic drywall sheets that they just had to throw together and call it a day. No. They say the brand new Alexandra Palace, the one that took less than 2 years in the 1800s, before the power tool, contained a concert hall, art galleries, a museum, a lecture hall, a library, a banqueting room, and a large theater. Why are they leaving out massive details for this project? This is incredible. This place even had a horse racing course that they destroyed in 1970.
What they need
a
with a horse
Japanese
racing
village
course?
and other things. And do you also find it odd that these sports teams just started popping up in the late 1800s? There are none from the 1700s. Do you find that odd? This goes back to episode 10 and 38. That the timeline, in my opinion, begins in 1776. And I want to make this clear. I don't think that the USA is the reason for the kickstart. This isn't a USA versus the world topic. Every country, in my opinion, was also created to create borders and division. Passports, as we have talked about, have also just arrived in the 1800s, so that you are physically jailed within the walls that they have provided, unless you have papers to visit other lands. Which should be a given right, that we should just be able to visit wherever we want, since this is where we were born. I think that the world is operating together. The world is conducting this operation that planned out the USA in 1776. And that was the initial starting point to the new timeline that we are all presented. My point is that we are told that for millions of years, humans invented nothing, but we're very capable of building the Milan Cathedral and all the incredible structures from thousands of years ago. And these civilizations that constructed these things, we are told, had nothing. They didn't have electricity, no cars, no planes, no trains, no phones to communicate. Yet we see star forts all over the world. They look exactly the same. With zero communication, we are told that only 500 years ago, Columbus found America. Yet there are star forts all over the USA that look exactly like the ones in Europe. We have nothing for millions of years, but so many so-called inventions have just come out of nowhere in the last 200 years. The probability of us having nothing, riding by feathers, riding on donkeys, no power tools, and living in sheds, that is simply, in my mind, mathematically impossible. Oh, did you think we were done with the Alexandra Palace? Before I finish this episode off and show that we are correct, and show you how this entire operation works, and show you exactly how this has been hidden within our historical narratives for far too long, I want to make sure that we take the time to thank all of our badge members, all of the Patreons, and every single subscriber, because these people are all helping this channel grow and helping this topic reach brand new people every day. You guys are all awesome. So are you ready? A fire happened, as we've shown, inside the Alexandra Palace, 16 days after the opening in 1873. They rebuilt the building, as we were told, in just 2 years, completed in 1875. Now, as a reminder, these old fires, most likely, in my opinion, never happened, and they are simply a nod to the hidden group that this specific building is from the old world, built by a previous civilization. Now, there's a big difference between a fire from the 1800s, or as we've shown from the 1300s, which is ridiculous, but there's a big difference from a fire in the 1800s that we cannot find any evidence that it ever took place, and a fire within the last 100 years that we were all around to see and document. And this is when things get interesting. When in 1980, a Haringey Council took over the trusteeship of the Alexandra Palace, insuring it for $31 million. As we have explained, a fire from the last 100 years is not only a nod, it's also a great way to destroy one of these buildings from the previous civilization without anyone to blame. Not only do they get to destroy the building, but they also collect the insurance check. It is a win-win for them. And this Haringey Council is worth an investigation, because just 6 months after they insured it for $31 million, a fire started under the organ that completely spread. It destroyed half of the building. Again, the outer walls survived. Because these outer walls are from the old world and not by us. House fires also don't destroy stone, brick, or marble. It simply doesn't get hot enough, and we've shown this as well. The famous organ was destroyed, even though they were already dismantling it. What are the odds of that? And took our civilization, while we were all here to see it, 8 years to reopen, when in 1873, it took them 2 years. Are you seeing the live very clearly now? Multiple fires, tons of destruction, and an incredible amount of lies, all just sitting here, waiting for us to pick it apart and expose it to the world every single week. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. I'll be back very soon with much more. See ya.
Damn, lunch break. Hold on, I got some more shit. This is my other channel I fuck with. Hold on, let me show y'all. Just, I ain't even got to type it in all the way, I'm pretty sure. Oh, hold on, I'm on the wrong shit. Let me take the shot first. Ooh. Oh my God, that was cold. Hold on. Now, but before we get into that, hold on, before we get into that, what the hell just happened? It was too cold real quick. Hold on. Let's see. Sheesh. I was just standing there. Oh, it's just a perfect one. Then the pass. He ain't leave quick enough. But yeah, this channel too. Hold on, let's play this video. All right. Oh.
Ask not what the World Economic Forum can do for you, but what you can do for the World Economic Forum.
So looking into Davos 2024, the 54th annual WEF summit meeting and their very telling theme, rebuilding trust. I mean, astounding, right?
We must rebuild trust, and that's actually the theme of our meeting. We have to rebuild trust.
Can you rebuild what just isn't there and never was? I mean, at first glance, it's truly laughable, contemptible, outrageous, creepy how out of touch they seem to be, creepy how arrogant they seem to remain in spite of everything.
When did the word expert become almost an insult?
When the real agenda is just the same old, and there's no reason to, quote, trust it. And so as tempting as that theme is to just throw back in the face of Klaus Schwab, that people don't trust WEF or their agenda, that they reject it, that they're protesting it,
Right.
It's naive to pretend that that's just all that rebuilding trust is really about, or that it's as simple as the most straightforward of definitions: a firm belief in integrity, ability, character, the condition of having confidence placed in one in which confidence is placed, the opposite of having violated a public trust. These are the first definitions that pull up online, and yeah, there's been a colossal failure there. Rebuilding trust. As the Telegraph succinctly said in its headline, the global super rich want to rebuild trust. Good luck with that. There's the AP connecting the WEF's big artistic wall with all these slogans and words centered around rebuilding trust. It was full of buzzwords that they pointed out people said smacked of, quote, empty talk. Critics say the annual meeting are the preserve of business chieftains who covet greater wealth and politicians who want to stay in power. As Alex Clement of G0 reminds us, trust, as we keep hearing, is broken. Only 16% of Americans trust their government, down 60 points from peak trust in the mid-1960s. Fewer than a third of Americans trust each other. Meanwhile, half of Americans say the media deliberately misleads them, and fewer than a quarter say journalists have society's interest at heart. Trust is a big issue society-wide, but especially with the elites that are epitomized at this point by WEF. And yet, in spite of all this, at this Rebuilding Trust meeting, the World Economic Forum and their 2024 Global Risk Assessment Report identified misinformation and disinformation as the #1 most severe global risk over the next 2 years. Above climate crises, above wars, above economic issues, everything. Misinformation and disinformation, still these terrible talking points.
Disinformation makes money, and that's one of the, we need to follow that money, and we need to work with in particular
They want to be the only ones to lie to us. They're like, fuck that.
2024 Global Risk Assessment Report identified misinformation and disinformation as the number government, down 60 points from peak trust in the mid-1960s. Fewer than a third of Americans trust each other. Meanwhile, half of Americans say the media deliberately misleads them, and fewer than a quarter say journalists have society's interest at heart. Trust is a big issue society-wide, but especially with the elites that are epitomized at this point by WEF. And yet, in spite of all this, at this Rebuilding Trust meeting, the World Economic Forum in their 2024 Global Risk Assessment Report identified misinformation and disinformation as the number one most severe global risk over the next 2 years. Above climate crises, above wars, above economic issues, everything. Misinformation and disinformation, still these terrible talking points.
Disinformation makes money, and that's one of the, we need to follow that money, and we need to work with in particularly the global advertising industry, that a lot of those dollars go to pretty bad content. And so you can work really hard on exclusion lists or inclusion lists to sort of really try to focus ad dollars and challenge the global advertising industry all around the world to focus their ad dollars towards the good news and information, the accurate and relevant news and information.
And with this in mind, Reuters pointed out all the mistrust going on by so many different players, different countries, different parts of the world, different sectors of societies, and yet all of them have in common a pushback against technology. They wrote in part, the highest level of mistrust about the management of innovation was in the United States. The report said examples of pushback against technology included Beijing dropping out of COVID vaccine mandates after online pushback, U.S. Republican positions against electric vehicles, and Hollywood's writers' battle against the use of artificial intelligence in writing scripts, because it's also just pathetic. Resistance to innovation is political, the survey said. Be that as it may, the underlying factor is a distrust in technology as the power of our society. Presumably, the WEF elites and their quest for domination don't want more pushback, so therefore it makes sense to rebuild trust. But even they know that's not going to easily happen. They invited people this year. Not only did the Heritage president, Kevin Roberts, go there, but he said some very pointed things.
One thing that Davos, you might say, and the people come here stand up for, is liberal democracy.
It's laughable that you would, or anyone would describe Davos as protecting liberal democracy.
Kevin Roberts. They invited people this year. Not only did the Heritage president, Kevin Roberts, go there, but he said some very pointed things.
One thing that Davos, you might say, and the people come here stand up for, is liberal democracy.
It's laughable that you would, or anyone would describe Davos as protecting liberal democracy.
Kevin Roberts wrote in part, the infamous, hypocritical, self-avowed Marxists, private jet environmentalists, and genocide-adjacent humanitarians want to hear from the Heritage Foundation how they can rebuild trust with everyday Americans against whom they have weaponized their institutions, with an institution that everyday Americans perceive as hostile. Good luck rebuilding trust from that. In my view, this is part of the game. I don't think they're concerned about everyday Americans viewing them as hostile. When you really dig into it, their supposed agenda of trust really amounts to putting it back onto the users, onto dissenters, onto online speech, as though that is the problem. That's why they've centered on misinformation and disinformation as being the biggest risk in the very year that they look to rebuild trust. An unelected, unaccountable global elite who parade annually on stage at their global forum that appears to impose, or at least cheerlead, some collectivizing, controlling, centralizing, freedom-destroying, constitution-circumventing policies that benefit primarily an already powerful and parade annually on stage foundation how they can rebuild trust with everyday Americans against whom they have weaponized their institutions, with an institution that everyday Americans perceive as hostile. Good luck rebuilding trust from that. In my view, this is part of the game. I don't think they're concerned about everyday Americans viewing them as hostile. When you really dig into it, their supposed agenda of trust really amounts to putting it back onto the users, onto dissenters, onto online speech, as though that is the problem. That's why they've centered on misinformation and disinformation as being the biggest risk in the very year that they look to rebuild trust. An unelected, unaccountable global elite who parade annually on stage at their global forum that appears to impose, or at least cheerlead, some collectivizing, controlling, centralizing, freedom-destroying, constitution-circumventing policies that benefit primarily an already powerful and extremely wealthy corporate elite and their most subservient political figureheads. They mostly don't care what we think. So how can they really be looking to rebuild trust on that level? They primarily just need enough trust and consensus to roll this new phase forward without obstacles before there's no turning back.
The good news is the elite across the world trust each other more and more, so we can come together and design and do beautiful things together. The bad news is that in every single country they were polling, the majority of people trusted that elite less. So we can lead, but if people aren't following, we're not going to get to where we want to go.
But on another level, Klaus Schwab's speech strongly suggests a different definition of trust altogether. Reading the words of Klaus Schwab, listening to the words that he spoke, comes off much more like that of a trust of a foundation, of an estate or an asset that's entrusted, given over for management. Or perhaps it speaks to yet another definition of trust, that of an organization formed explicitly for the purpose of regulating the supply and price of commodities, such as a sugar trust, etc. A combination, a secretive cum conspiratorial board profiting off of artificially manipulated economies. Is that what this is about? Our future, the direction of our shared earth, our rights and political systems upon it, being held as a property in trust is held. Is that what this is really about?
To break this cycle, we need a paradigm shift. We must rebuild trust, and that's actually the theme of our meeting. We have to rebuild trust. Trust in our future.
What does he mean?
Rebuild
to
trust.
Whom and to what exactly is he referring? Yet another definition of trust, that of an organization formed explicitly for the purpose of regulating the supply and price of.
I'm not necessarily doing reactions, but I mean, I'm watching it live, so I guess you can call it that. But I'm really just researching topics that I find interesting while I, relax and play a little 2K. I mean, I'm not necessarily reacting to it though. I mean, I guess you could say I am, but I'm just low-key watching it and enjoying it, multitasking at the same time. But occasionally I can re-edit this stuff and get some clips out of it or whatever. But it's basically topics that aren't well known to the mass majority of people. So, and I try to stay well versed in multiple topics and shit. But yeah, somewhat of a reaction, somewhat of live stream, somewhat of a just chilling. Not really it's no real agenda, just chilling. Getting some information. What's going on with you though?
Trusted that elite less. So we can lead, but if people aren't following, we're not going to get to where we want to go.
But on another level, Klaus Schwab's speech strongly suggests a different definition of trust altogether. Reading the words of Klaus Schwab, listening to the words that he spoke, comes off much more like that of a trust of a foundation, of an estate or an asset that's entrusted, given over for management. Or perhaps it speaks to yet another definition of trust, that of an organization formed explicitly for the purpose of regulating the supply and price of commodities, such as a sugar trust, etc. A combination, a secretive cum conspiratorial board profiting off of artificially manipulated economies. Is that what this is about? Our future, the direction of our shared earth, our rights and political systems upon it, being held as a property in trust is held. Is that what this is really about?
To break this cycle, we need a paradigm shift. We must rebuild trust, and that's actually the theme of our meeting. We have to rebuild trust. Trust in our future.
What does he mean? To whom and to what exactly is he referring?
Trust is not just a feeling. Trust is a commitment to action, to belief, to hope. To achieve this, we must rediscover and embrace the narrative that has driven humanity since its inception, acting as trustees for a better future.
Did you hear that?
Acting as trustees for a better future.
He says,
this narrative isn't about short-term gains or individual successes. It is about stewardship. To rebuild trust, there's a fundamental need to embody trusteeship, which means to care for the greater good. Let's use this annual meeting to rebuild trust by exercising our trusteeship individually and collectively. Exercising our trusteeship for safeguarding the future of humanity and nature. Thank you.
No problem.
This interpretation of a trusteeship, a stewardship, a combination trust recalls very much the 1992 UNCED conference and the video about it done by George Hunt.
This is the logo of the Earth Summit. This is not a dove in their Earth Summit logo.
In his hands.
It is a hand.
The United Nations Conference on Environmental Development, whose motto and logo was "In Our Hands."
In whose hands? Who is the we in this motto?
Literally showing the concept of in their hands, a global worldwide environmental trust, one that is managed by banking interest and other management interest in the name of tackling, quote, truly global systemic problems that they have determined can only be, quote, solved through a big enough net with a scale too big to control through mere democratic energies, right? Just as Schwab said this year in 2024.
The concept of trust and trusteeship compels us to think beyond borders and beyond our lifetimes.
That's a jurisdictional boundary outside of nation states and traditional rights, which is very troubling because they're not defined. There's very little restrictions in what they could do there with their trust. If you think it through, there's a real problem there for us little people, for the individuals, for our personal lives, and especially for our rights in the scheme of this whole thing that's become our lives with these people in the mix. That a word like trust is being used so pointedly, deceptively, with its own hidden agenda, just the usage of the word trust, and everyone, in a sense, trusting that rebuilding trust has just a surface level meaning, is itself kind of upsetting, honestly.
We must rebuild trust, and that's actually the theme of our meeting. We have to rebuild trust. Trust, acting as trustees. The concept of trust and trusteeship as
trusting that rebuilding trust people for the environment can only be, quote, solved through a big enough
rebuild trust by exercising our trusteeship as trustees.
Our future, the direction of our shared earth, our rights and political systems upon it, being held as a property in trust is held. Is that what this is really about?
To break this cycle
altogether. Reading the words of Klaus Schwab, listening to the words that he spoke, comes circumventing policies that benefit primarily an already powerful and extremely wealthy corporate elite and their most subservient political figureheads. They mostly don't care what we think. So how can they really be looking to rebuild trust on that level? They primarily just need enough trust and consensus to roll this new phase forward without obstacles before there's no turning back.
The good news is the elite across the world trust each other more and more, so we can come together and design and do beautiful things together. The bad news is that in every single country they were polling, the majority of people trusted that elite less. So we can lead, but if people aren't following, we're not going to get to where we want to go.
But on another level, Klaus Schwab's speech strongly suggests a different definition of trust altogether. Reading the words of Klaus Schwab, listening to the words that he spoke, comes off much more like that of a trust, of a foundation, of an estate or an asset that's entrusted, given over for management. Or perhaps it speaks to yet another definition of trust, that of an organization formed explicitly for the purpose of regulating the supply and price of commodities, such as a sugar trust, etc. A combination, a secretive cum conspiratorial board profiting off of artificially manipulated economies. Is that what this is about? Our future, the direction of our shared earth, our rights and political systems upon it being held as a property in trust is held. Is that what this is really about?
To break this cycle, we need a paradigm shift. We must rebuild trust, and that's actually the theme of our meeting. We have to rebuild trust. Trust in our future.
What does he mean? To whom and to what exactly is he referring?
Trust is not just a feeling. Trust is a commitment to action, to belief, to hope. To achieve this, we must rediscover and embrace the narrative that has driven humanity since its inception, acting as trustees for a better future.
Did you hear that?
Yeah. Trustees.
As trustees for a better future.
He says,
this narrative isn't about short-term gains or individual successes. It is about stewardship. To rebuild trust, there's a fundamental need to embody trusteeship, which means to care for the greater good. Let's use this annual meeting to rebuild trust by exercising our trusteeship individually and collectively.
Exercising our trusteeship
for safeguarding the future of humanity and nature. Thank you.
This interpretation of a trusteeship, a stewardship, a combination trust recalls very much the 1992 UNCED conference and the video about it done by George Hunt.
This is the logo of the Earth Summit. This is not a dove in their Earth Summit logo. It is a hand.
The United Nations Conference on Environmental Development, whose motto and logo was "In Our Hands."
In whose hand?
The world.
Who is the we in this motto?
Literally showing the concept of in their hands, a global worldwide environmental trust, one that is managed by banking interest and other management interest, in the name of tackling, quote, truly global systemic problems that they have determined can only be, quote, solved through a big enough net, with a scale too big to control through mere democratic energies, right? Just as Schwab said this year in 2024.
The concept of trust and trusteeship compels us to think beyond borders and beyond our lifetimes.
That's a jurisdictional boundary outside of nation states and traditional rights, which is very troubling because they're not defined. There's very little restrictions in what they could do there with their trust. If you think it through, there's a real problem there for us little people, for the individuals, for our personal lives, and especially for our rights in the scheme of this whole thing that's become our lives with these people in the mix. That a word like trust is being used so pointedly yet deceptively, with its own hidden agenda, just the usage of the word trust, and everyone, in a sense, trusting that rebuilding trust has just a surface level meaning, is itself kind of upsetting, honestly.
We must rebuild trust, and that's actually the theme of our meeting. We have to rebuild trust. Trust, 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 acting as trustees. The concept of trust and trusteeship. As trustees of the future, trust as trustees.
Trustees.
So there's one line that I just wanted to talk to you guys about just for a second, because it really bothers me that Klaus Schwab is sitting up there on his blue stage opening the 2024 Davos Forum with,
to achieve this, we must rediscover and embrace the narrative that has driven humanity since its inception, acting as trustees for a better future.
So who named them trustees? Who created this trust, and what assets are in it, and who is the grantor of that? Well, luckily you don't have to ask any of those questions or define any of those words, because he says this is the narrative they're embracing and that they will be acting as trustees.
Acting as trustees.
Which basically means it's all made up and they name themselves trustees and they're just going to act like that. So they're actors.
They got all the money.
I mean, this is their shindig that he charges a bunch of money for. People come listen to them. They could say they're the magical wizard pope of the 17th dimension. It really doesn't matter if it means anything or not. I mean, it's their show.
Right? It's their show. They can say what they want.
$43 hot dog. Buy a ticket for 19 grand. You must be a member of the Economic Forum, which costs a mere $52,000. And remember, that's only if you're invited. So now you're out $71K.
VIPs. So they're actors.
Acting.
Let me see.
I mean, this is their shindig that he charges a bunch of money for. People come listen to them. They could say they're the magical wizard pope of the 17th dimension. It really doesn't matter if it means anything or not. I mean, it's their show.
The magical what she call them?
$43 hot dog. Buy a ticket for 19 grand. You must be a member of the Economic Forum, which costs a mere $52,000. And remember, that's only if you're invited. So now you're out $71K. VIPs prefer a private chalet, and for that, 140 grand for the week. You want a wingman or woman, which WEF calls industry partner. With the add-on, we're now over $250,000. A chauffeur-driven Mercedes for the week. Actually a bargain at 10 grand. The private jet. More than 1,000 of those flew into the environmentally focused conference this week. And if you don't own your own jet, $70,000 round trip.
So if they're acting as trustees, then they're actors, and they're embracing a narrative, which is a story that they basically made up. They can tell themselves whatever they want and embrace whatever narrative they want. Doesn't mean that narrative is actually true, however.
Embrace the narrative.
So now the people at WEF have decided to tell themselves the story that they're trustees acting for a better future. But what's really creepy about it is that he says this is the narrative that has driven humanity since its inception. And they are right about that. Because throughout time immemorial,
just throw it up, let them go get it.
Priest classes and popes and kings and corrupt dictators and tyrannical governments have all said that what they're doing is for the greater good, and that it's for a better future to justify all manner of horrible, awful thing that whatever they wanted to do at any given time, ever. And he's right about that. That is always what has happened. So he's just continuing a long tradition of corrupt power structures, taking authority that is not legitimate, taking power that is not legitimate. That's essentially what they're doing. And now, no matter what they do, they can put it on a list and say, well, it's for the greater good.
One ubiquitous
type of ID, and certainly that it was digital. And certainly
One
it was
ID
biometric.
for everyone
Individual
again.
carbon footprint tracker.
A globally coordinated system of carbon taxes.
We're trustees for a better future, so anything we want to do in our agenda that benefits us and our stakeholders, that's for the greater good too, and it's for a better future. We'll just slap that on the list. I mean, it doesn't make it true, though. That's the thing. It doesn't make it true. And so, essentially,
It's not true.
It's just bullshit.
In conclusion, trust embodied trusteeship to rebuild trust by exercising our trusteeship. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear Klaus.
Importantly, by identifying disinformation and misinformation as the single biggest planetary risk this year, the same year that they set, quote, rebuilding trust as their main agenda point, they're shifting the blame and putting the burden on the rest of us, not on the reasons that common people don't trust this unelected, unaccountable para-government that has the audacity to go on stage and say these things, but to the trust of, are these common people engaging in disinformation and misinformation? And how do we know who they are? And how do we know what they're doing? And how do we regulate what they're saying and doing? That's really what this gets into. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen.
Your annual global risk report makes for a stunning and sobering read. For the global business community, the top concern for the next 2 years is not conflict or climate. It is disinformation and misinformation.
Is full of rebels.
And of course, during the last few years, in the name of disinformation and misinformation, many of us online have seen our ability to be heard greatly diminished, if not restricted and banned altogether. Von der Leyen hit this language pretty hard in her speech.
For example, with disinformation and misinformation. And nowhere has there been more of that than on the issue of Ukraine.
But is it not they who smelt it that dealt it? She said in part,
rebuilding trust. This is not a time for conflicts or polarization. This is a time to build trust.
I mean, is this just all utter BS and word salad, or is this leading to something important? She said in part,
business have the innovation, the technology, the talents to deliver the solutions we need to fight threats like climate change or industrial scale disinformation.
Climate change,
the business solutions and the technology around the algorithms stymie dissidents and a brackish backwater pool of the internet. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just because those are things that we've actually experienced in the last couple of years, and I'm still kind of bitter about it.
Disinformation and misinformation. Disinformation and misinformation. Industrial scale disinformation. For example,
industrial
with
scale
and
disinformation now.
Industrial scale disinformation, by which they don't actually mean industrial scale, they actually just mean individual common people with whom they want to rebuild trust, who they also want to suppress into non-existence. Sorry, nothing two-faced going on here at all. Von der Leyen says,
because our democracies and our businesses have interests that align, creating equal opportunity and freedom.
I mean, how this kind of utter nonsense can be uttered and yet trust be demanded.
Easy.
I don't know.
And there is no doubt that we face the greatest risk
not
the global order in the post-war era. But in order to face risks, we have to take risks.
So clearly, disinfo, misinfo, catch-all buzzwords, whatever problem children they might want to deal with, totally vague, borderline meaningless.
It has never been more important for the public and private sector to create new connective tissue.
The EU issued another report on disinformation. It was timed with the 2024 WEF conference, and it addresses the reduced trust in public institutions, the spread of false stories, harassment allegedly going on online, and the sowing of hatred against nations and groups of people. And by groups of people, they probably pretty much mean themselves.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear Klaus.
Listen to the way that the European Commission Vice President Josep Borrell talks about us, the people, the little ones. As The Guardian writes, in part, this new warfare, quote unquote, does not involve bombs that kill you, but words and ideas that colonize you. So you've got mouthpieces for one of the most elite organizations on the planet lecturing other people about words and ideas that, quote, colonize you. That's the new warfare. It's everyone else. It's not the things going on there. Without irony, this report states the goal is not only to shape the global narratives, but also to suppress and silence dissenting voices. They're supposedly not talking about themselves. It's those that are doing the disinfo, not those that are censoring the dissenting voices. Yeah. Are you keeping track of that? And Borrell also apparently said, keep in mind that unchecked malicious content spreads like a cancer and puts the health of the democracy at risk. But we have the tools to fight against this. So they have the tools to check the spread of malicious content. The viewpoints of dissenters online, that's not the democracy. It's the elite people with the tools to suppress the speech. They're the ones protecting the democracy, and the democracy exists in some bubble somewhere. I don't know.
Because the boundary between online and offline is getting thinner and thinner.
When you really think about what's being said here, what we're talking about is an overwide net that has been cast over the smaller voices and is discriminating against many individuals in the name of so-called democracy.
The next years will require us to think in the same way.
Is WEF really talking about, even theoretically, restoring trust, quote unquote, of their brand with the people?
If you go back really not that long ago, as I say, we owned the news. We were the gatekeepers, and we very much owned the facts as well. If it said it in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, then that was a fact. Nowadays, people can go to all sorts of different sources for the news, and they're much more questioning about what we're saying.
Or is it, as I've suggested, a lot more like blame shifting to use disinfo to distrust dissenting voices among the common people and put the burden on them and the supposedly horrible things they say, and not on the system that's done so much harm to so many people, has usurped so many rights, and really set out a forward-thinking, organized agenda to destroy freedom of speech, and to undermine dissent on the internet.
The next years will require us to think in the same way. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that shit's crazy.
With that said, if you look at the coded language and the buzzwords, it's clear that, quote, trust has a very particular meaning with respect to the unveiling and implementation of artificial intelligence.
You know, we're going to have digital doctors, digital people. And these digital people are going to emerge, and there's going to have to be a level of trust.
So let's focus on that specifically and its growing potentials to control and dominate society. So what does trust have to do with AI? The rub of that agenda is coming out in the next phase here. So CNBC says, in part, among the big names from the business world, many will undoubtedly be keen to hear from Sam Altman, reinstalled CEO of ChatGPT maker OpenAI, who's scheduled to discuss safety and trust in technology.
I have a lot of empathy for the general nervousness and discomfort of the world towards companies like us and, you know, the other people doing similar things, which is like, why is our future in their hands? Why is our future in their hands?
Meanwhile, I think at the same forum, Microsoft CEO Nadella also speaking on AI and ChatGPT and OpenAI.
We have to take the unintended consequences of any new technology along with all the benefits. I feel like our license to operate as an industry depends on that, because I don't think the world will put up anymore with any of us coming up with something that has not thought through safety, trust, equity. And this, by the way, is not new for many other industries. But it is a little new for the tech industry.
And it does speak to the public anger and the acceptance of technology in the general public. It also has to do with the nitty-gritty, boring, less interesting way that the law is shaping around the technology online. So I come back around to the other part of Ursula von der Leyen's 2024 WEF speech, the one where she expressly greets not only the general ladies and gentlemen of the crowd, but her quote, "Dear Klaus."
Dear Klaus. Dear Klaus.
I mean, maybe they should get a room. So in the meat of Ursula's talk, which surely did get a rise out of Dear Klaus, was what amounts to a nightmare of restricted content and de-amplification online.
To rebuild trust, to rebuild trust.
These are real-life consequences that many of us have personally felt and enabled and accelerated by these new EU regulations.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear Klaus, let me go back to the number one concern of the Global Risk Report: disinformation and misinformation. Tackling this has been our focus since the very beginning of my mandate. With our Digital Services Act, we defined the responsibility of large internet platforms on the content they promote and propagate, responsible to children and vulnerable groups targeted by hate speech. And this is even more important in this new era of generative AI.
The Digital Services Act, which I think was finalized in 2020, it regulates disinformation on the major social media and tech platforms. And just recently, here in the last month or so, they filed a complaint and opened proceedings against X, formerly Twitter. The platform just publicly revamped and revised through Elon Musk's purchase and subsequent focus on restoring free speech. At least that's what he talked about, whatever he really does. That was being suppressed by Twitter employees and who were caught coordinating with the FBI, Homeland Security, members of the White House staff to remove or render invisible individual post and content creators. The CSIS website wrote, quote, "Unapologetically, commission officials have been clear that their overarching regulatory goal is to limit market power held by LOPs, that's the large online platforms, acting as, quote, gatekeepers. Gatekeepers being a term that the commission has yet to define. Quote, we've come to a point where we have to take action, a point where the power of digital businesses, especially the biggest gatekeepers, threatens our freedoms, our opportunities, even our democracy. Basically, gatekeeping the gatekeepers. Yeah, they use that word. And this legislation, this policy is now gatekeeping the internet. The European Commission under the DSA say, quote, we will now start an in-depth investigation of X's compliance with the DSA obligations concerning countering the dissemination and amplification of illegal content and disinformation in the EU. And so the chilling effect on dissent is quite clear, doubling down on disinformation and misinformation. Number one problem, they say. There's not other problems. There's not a lot of people economically hurting who can't pay rent or afford to buy groceries. I mean, that's what happened this year, 2024. But I browsed the documents for the public consultation on the AI white paper. Because whenever these policies claim to be after a mission of making sure AI is trustworthy, they have to do this little checkboxing thing. Let's make sure we have everyone's trust and consent here. Let's checkbox it. And they consult with the public. They want to, quote, promote an ecosystem of excellence and trust for AI. There's that word trust. An overwhelming majority of people strongly supported the need for new legislation. So that's a mandate. You could bet they're going to have that new legislation. But what's really going to be in there? What's the real camel's nose under the tent here? The big sell here is that, quote, the Artificial Intelligence Act builds trust by looking at high-risk cases like a real-time remote biometric identification, biometric mass surveillance. They use that term multiple times in this document. They're talking about identification of individuals out of a mass of people and from a distance, including facial recognition biometrics, the gait of a person's walk biometrics, and biometrics identifying voices, ranking people based on their personal characteristics, social economic status, or behavior, which is basically a social credit score. That, according to this document, would also be unacceptable. And of course, we could all celebrate that. Good. The worst of it is done away with. So, though this is proposed, they're expecting it to take effect relatively soon. And theoretically, this would ban unacceptable risk categories. All the other things that are in the minimal risk category or the general AI category would pretty much be accepted and put into use. Furthermore, individual states in the EU would be prevented from further regulating general use artificial intelligence under the doctrine of maximum harmonization. So the worst things supposedly are going to be banned, but everything else have to just accept their use, and there it goes. That's dangerous too. This is going to be a total wild card with artificial intelligence, which very clearly they're intent on unleashing here. So we'll see what we get out of it. And so here are some comments from Joe McNamee, who ironically is the senior policy expert for the EU Disinfo Lab, warning against the problems of mass biometric surveillance in artificial intelligence systems. He says, in part, the purpose of this article is to explain the decision-making process for the AI Act and how it risks leading to the rollout of AI-powered biometric mass surveillance. Didn't I see headlines about the EU voting to ban biometric mass surveillance only a few weeks ago, he writes? You did, except it wasn't the EU. It was a committee vote in the European Parliament. Exceptionally, this was confirmed by a full vote of the Parliament. This vote launches the beginning of a secret closed-door negotiation with two other EU institutions, the Council and the Commission. Not the end of negotiations, the beginning. He goes on to say later in the article, so the compromise will be that the biometric mass surveillance will be allowed subject to unenforceable safeguards. These are the policies to reinsure trust that will allow biometric mass surveillance, but with certain safeguards to give the public the reassurance to restore trust. He writes, so the EP could literally ban in public and then accept it in private and get away with it? Yes, he writes, the European Parliament will be able to both gain plaudits for banning human rights eroding biometric mass surveillance and not be held accountable for causing its rollout in the EU and across the globe. And that system, by definition, will track human beings because the people who run that system don't trust people.
Trust.
But they want those people to trust that that system is being held accountable and watched by humans to a system that wants to restore trust in the sense of holding the world and its people as an asset held in trust, as a corporation to be run by managers, as stewards of our lives.
Elites, yeah. Elites and big scheiße, I like bullshit. Bullshit, okay.
Ask not what the World Economic Forum can do for you, but what you can do for the World Economic Forum. Now, what do I mean by that? The purpose of the forum is to inspire people. Hopefully, when you go back to your country, you'll educate yourself about some of the things that we talked about here that you might be inspired to learn more about, and try to pick one issue of the ones we talked about where you make yourself not only well educated about it, better educated than now, but try to make some difference in your own country to try to bring forward some of these ideas. Because the only way we're really going to be effective, the World Economic Forum, is we have people that come to the sessions, and those people are watching on streaming. They are going to take these ideas and do something useful with them by working in their own countries to kind of educate people about these things. And that's what I really hope all of you will do.
When I mention now names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. What we are very proud of now is the young...
So the forum is to inspire people. Hopefully, when you go back to your country, you'll educate yourself about some of the things that we talked about here that you might be inspired to learn more about, and try to pick one issue of the ones we talked about where you make yourself not only well educated about it, better educated than now, but try to make some difference in your own country to try to bring forward some of these ideas. Because the only way we're really going to be effective, the World Economic Forum, is we have people that come to the sessions, and those people are watching on streaming. They are going to take these ideas and do something useful with them by working in their own countries to kind of educate people about these things. And that's what I really hope all of you will do.
When I mention now names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, They all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. What we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina, and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more, half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's true in Argentina as well.
It's true in Argentina, and it's true in France now.
Take something away from this session and say, I am now inspired to learn more about this issue or that issue, and I'm going to try to do something in my country to make it more likely that that will happen.
And if I may, I will be candid and say that the agenda that every single member of the administration needs to have is to compile a list of everything that's ever been proposed at the World Economic Forum and object to all of them wholesale.
Right?
I would like to solve the puzzle.
Object.
I would like to solve the puzzle.
All right, man, that's a good video. Try to find something else maybe in a second. In the meantime, play a little Battlefield for a second.
The enemy is at 50% strength.
Grenade out! Take cover! Enemy is down!
Bad, hold on. Put y'all over so y'all can see too. God damn, he got me on the corner.
Oh, I need help here.
I need help, bro. Oh, we could crawl now? Or could we always crawl? I can't remember, but I'm crawling. That's cool though. I can't remember if we was able to, oh, yeah, this is new. That's tight. That's tight that they letting us crawl now. Yeah, because you used to just have to sit there and die. So at least we get to crawl. All right, let's go. Push this left, fuck it.
Stay back! Hostile charge is disabled. Good work.
Damn, where's my health at? How did the fucking dude get behind me? Oh, where's he at? Oh, I forgot. I can move. Battlefield feels smooth as fuck right now.
Outgoing!
Turn around. You've left the engagement.
Fucking behind us. What the fuck? Again? He's in like a glitch spot or something. He gotta be. Oh no, they probably hit me from up there. That's what it is. Alright, fuck it. We're going to the right then. Oh, self-heal? Cool. All right. Oh God, bro. Where the fuck did that come from? My guy that was gonna heal me died, I think. Damn, okay, we must have won. I'll take it. I'll take it, bro. Haven't played this game in so long. Give me a second real quick. Yeah, 2K is fun, but I gotta give it a break real quick. Play some motherfucking Battlefield. I haven't played Battlefield in like 2 months, so I gotta get through this battle pass a little bit. I might get back on it later. All right, ready? Let's get this shit. Where the fuck am I at? Drop me in the game, though.
Push the enemy back sector by sector and destroy the objectives.
Just a second. Up we go.
No, I gotta swim now. Some fucking bullshit. Whatever. At least we can swim. Like fucking Pearl Harbor.
The scientific attitude toward man is moving continuously from the obvious toward the subtle.
Guess I'm not gonna make it.
We are beginning to recognize a network of intangibles lying behind the human personality. 25 years ago, the world was sharply divided between those who saw in man merely a highly perfected machine and those clinging to the spiritual foundations of our culture and resting their case upon the reality of the human spirit and soul. The interval between these two groups is only now beginning to be bridged. Working largely from the Aristotelian position of man's outer life, thoughtful individuals and learned orders and groups
A bunch of them right there.
seeking to unfold and advance basic human culture, are recognizing the mysterious background which lies behind the obvious conduct of the individual. We are now, therefore, developing a very common psychological problem, namely wonder about mystery. And whereas not long ago we were certain of everything, now that mystery comes into the picture, we are uncertain of almost everything. In this uncertainty, our psychological schools have divided and further divided until we can no longer find any common terminology with reasonable precision defining their various attitudes. This probing into the source of things makes it convenient also to re-examine ancient forms of knowledge. And whereas 50 years ago, mythology, fable, legend belonged only to certain art or culture groups, we are now examining it to discover, if we can,
was he at?
Other keys to the internal life of the individual. Along the same line, we are beginning to be aware of the workings of ancient sciences. We are still inclined to assume that most of these sciences were psychological, particularly in the fields of therapy. We are still not convinced that all ancient remedies were as effective as they seem to be. Perhaps a great faith, a strong and ardent dedication to beliefs help these remedies. And we are thinking now in terms of the importance of this ardent belief in helping us in the various fields of our problem.
Where the hell am I getting shot from?
We have noted that the ancient man seemed to be able to believe more easily than we do.
They done spawned over there, that's why.
Because he lived in a world of mysteries and wonders. Modern man has a hard time becoming a devout believer in anything, because he lives in a world of so many critical opinions, so many cynical attitudes, and so much that passes for sound and solid knowledge. He is finding, however, that the lack of the ability to believe is weakening him, making him less able to carry the daily burden of life. As he de-glamorizes every part of his culture, he finds himself dying for lack of a little glamour. Now we have a reaction here, but we have now transferred our instinct toward glamour, toward hero worship, toward objects that are not really satisfactory. We are discovering that movie stars, prize fighters, and orchestra leaders, as subjects for glamour, are not quite so efficient or successful as the ancient gods or the muses or the prophets of old. All our glamour has become so materialized that it carries with it very little internal contribution to our strength. Digging back into all these old beliefs and ideas, we come to one of the earliest of them all, and that is a word which up to 10 years ago was anathema in the field of science, and that word is astrology. It was held to be one of the most ancient of man's vulgar superstitions, held to have no foundation in validity of any kind, and a great many second-rate astronomers have made careers out of belittling it and attacking it. Actually, however, as we have noted before, the subject has never been subjected to actual scientific analysis, even by our so-called scientific method. There is no field of belief in which there has been so much prejudice and so few facts. Taking the attitude, in general, that the concept was in conflict with our daily thinking and with the latest discoveries of science, it has been empirically rejected. Actually, we are not sure that this conflict exists.
I didn't see
but we
where
would
the
like
fuck I
rather
was.
to assume that it does than to add the slow and laborious procedure of investigating carefully and thoroughly. Again, however, the development of television and the perfection of radio devices, perfection of device, not program, we are sorry to note, has caused us to realize that there are a great many intangible forces operating in our lives. Radio and television, perhaps more than wireless telegraph, which preceded these, has opened to our consciousness the reality of things unseen. We are now willing to accept that this atmosphere in which we live may be a tremendous area of energy transmissions. We are willing to assume that through this room and through our own bodies, waves of energy are constantly moving, invisible to us. But we are not quite sure that their invisibility means that they have no effect upon us. If this effect has to be in terms of body impact, we can deny it. But if behind this body is an energy field, not so different from these very energies moving in space, are we certain that these universal energies have no effect upon our internal energies? Are we able to say with certainty that we are living in a universe of vital force, and yet we are immune to so many aspects and phases of this force, even though the force itself we must accept as the very source of our life? Thinking a little further in this particular field, we are now confronted with radiation, and to a degree with fallout. Radiation is much more subtle. We can imagine that fallout consists of minute material substances which can variously poison or contaminate us. But in terms of radiation, we are again in the presence of an invisible energy. And yet we now convinced that this energy can kill, that it does affect us. And studies of the universal spectrums of various parts of cosmos and space now indicate that radiation is pouring in upon us in many, many ways. Not long ago, a scientist pointed out that we are continuously in a field of radiation that is actually more dangerous than the atomic bomb. This field of radiation, coming to us from the sun and from other parts of space, would have destroyed us utterly had we not gradually, over millions of years, adapted ourselves to this kind of energy. So that we are living in a field of death, living because we have adapted ourselves to death and have come to survive its immediate consequences. With this type of thinking, therefore, the possibility that man lives in a world of energies is not nearly as mysterious as it used to be, or as difficult to accept. Nearly always, and this is true of all sciences, we have to break through old superstitions and unfounded interpretations in order to come to the substance of a thing. But let us not imagine for a moment that the stargazers of old were unique in their ability to befuddle their own subject. Today, in practically every branch of learning, the greatest menace is the expert. This individual is so set in his own ideas and so certain of his own methods that for every fact we discover, we add at least 3 or 4 new superstitions for our memory to struggle with. Today, we are encrusting nearly all of our modern branches of learning with interpretations and explanations that will be obsolete in 10 years. If, therefore, the subject of astrology has been exposed to human interpretation and misinterpretation, as Dr. Budge of the British Museum points out, for nearly 35,000 years, it is quite conceivable that it would have accumulated a number of elements and factors which may have to be sloughed off in the search for facts. Yet over this same period of time, all of those working with the subject have used the same identical basic machinery. And as is also pointed out by Dr. Budge, the interpretations used today are identical in principle with those found on the cuneiform Chaldean tablets that go very far back into the reign of Hammurabi among the Babylonian peoples. The same essential procedures, the same structures, with the possible exception of mathematics, upon which the whole subject depends.
Shot in the back while I was changing my
There is no other branch of learning that has survived so long without being completely reconstructed. It might therefore seem possible that there was certain validity that is unchanging, moving under the surface of the various national systems of divination, which we have now come to regard as pseudosciences, and to consider as hardly worth scientific thought. We are not nearly so sure anymore that these are worth so little attention. Another interesting and significant factor is the wide distribution of these beliefs. It has been said, and perhaps not untruly, that no culture system has ever attained maturity without the belief in the influence of the heavens upon the earth and man. India, China, Persia, Greece, Egypt, practically every great culture that we have known has held this belief. And up to the last 500 years, it has been for the most part held with esteem. And it was certainly regarded most affectionately by the great astronomers of Europe, to whom we are indebted for our new, emancipated astronomical theories. I refer to men like Kepler, Galileo, Copernicus, Brahe. These men, who were themselves the great patron saints of modern astronomical knowledge, they were all astrologers, including Kepler. This concept means that a thoughtful mind can also accept this idea. Perhaps it was lost to us with the rise of the great 19th century materialistic system. It could not then be fitted in, because man could not, under the dictum of science, believe what he could not see, or accept what could not be demonstrated in a laboratory. Unfortunately, however, he made no consistent effort to demonstrate, and therefore found it easy to reject something that he was not even interested in considering. Again, perhaps, the tremendous competition in the mind of man between antiquity and the modern world, the reluctance that we have to assume that other peoples or other ages have had knowledge that was important.
On that note, I'm gonna holler at y'all in a minute. I got some other shit I gotta do today, but yeah, I just wanted to make sure everything sounded good and, you know, get everything back to normal. But hopefully this stream sounds all right. But yeah, I'll holler at y'all in a minute. Peace.